Salutations, Imperial citizens and battle brothers. I hope you all know the drill by now. We went to another tournament with the Reclamation Force Detachment. This time, we're allying with the Vengeful Hosts to make all of our jump pack units a bit more efficient. Let's go over the list. We start with Captain Titus and the Wardens of Ultramar attached to a Bladeguard Veteran squad. Marneus Calgar and an ancient Terminator armor attached to 10 assault Terminators, a captain with jump pack, and a chaplain with jump pack, both having enhancements attached to 5 Vanguard Veterans each. One squad with the Liberatum and one squad with the Orksbane. We have 4 company heroes without a leader, 5 Reavers, 5 Scouts, a Land Raider Redeemer, and a Predator Annihilator. Our list caps out at 5 characters, 2 vehicles, and 9 units in total with a take and hold force disposition. Let's go over the games, shall we? The general game plan of the list is to push the big bricks of units onto the objectives and deny scoring. Our first round was fought against Space Wolves. We had to set up on a Crucible deployment, and we played against the Priority Assets game. As I have mentioned in the Grand Tournament report, I think this is probably one of the worst matchups in terms of what the force dispositions actually do. So we have an uphill battle here. The opponent's list was a big brick of Thunderwolves, head takers with a Wolfguard leader, 10 Wolfen, 2 Lancers, and then just a bunch of skirmish units. 1 land speeder, 2 jump pack units, 1 scout squad, 1 intercessor squad, some outriders. It was a lot of units, I think 14 in total. And they did give us a bit of trouble here because this was priority assets again. So in order for us to score our primary, we have to hold 1, 2 objectives at any given time, and we have to hold 3 objectives at the end of each turn to get our bonus points. And should we ever have a hold more objectives than our opponent, we get a massive points buff. However, all our opponent has to do is hold 1 objective outside of the deployment zone and do an action in order to get 9 points out of it. This is obviously really difficult to play because there are 4 objectives in No Man's Land, and if at any given time the priority assets player manages to hold 3 objectives in the command phase, they get a massive points boost. And in order for us to deny this, we have to contest 4 objectives at basically any given time in order to stop this from happening. So, what was the plan? The plan was originally to sit in this objective with the heroes and then use our big blobs to contest the mid-board and wear our opponents down by killing all of the action units. It more or less worked out this way. My Land Raider deployed right here, and I did push up and unload my Titus unit into the Thunderwolf staging behind this ruin here, while the Terminators just walked right here and started a big fight with the Wolfguard and the Wolfen, basically. So, turn 1, I killed an Impulsor here. I killed 5 JPI here. My Terminators were in the center. On the left side, we killed half the Thunderwolves of the Titus Brick. They were a bit tough, but we managed to get in there. And importantly enough, the head takers, which did choose the Titus unit as the prey, so they have death wounds against that unit, never actually made it to the Titus unit. I think my opponent made a big blunder at some point because we did lose all of the Terminators here, and Titus was still bogged down here, and we had to deal with the Wolfen, the head takers, Bjorn, and a bunch of these skirmish units still going around. And the remaining Thunderwolves, of course. I decided to go in and crushed this little area down here. We killed 5 more JPI down there. We killed the land speeder and Bjorn over here, and we did grind down the remaining Thunderwolves to move a bit up. Our opponent had a good opportunity because my Orksbane jump pack squad over here failed its charge into this head taker squad. It was like a 6-inch charge. We failed it. Didn't have a CP left to reroll it, so instead we went down into the Outriders and killed them instead. But that gave our opponent chance to have 2 melee units go for each target. And in my opinion, if the head takers went up into Titus and the Wolfen went down into the Venvets, we would have won that game, I believe. However, our opponent would have won that game, in my opinion. But our opponent decided to go up with the Wolfen and down with the head takers, which means our Vanguard Veterans managed to pull an interrupt and killed every head taker except for the battle leader, who stayed on that objective for the rest of the game. But we did get a good interrupt out of there and killed them all. And even though the Wolfen up there are damage free, they got stuck in the hero units they got stuck in the Wardens with Titus, and they just couldn't finish the job. Like, our opponent charged in with 8 Wolfen, I believe, because 2 of them died in the fight on death from the Calgar squad. So yeah, he charged in with 8 Wolfen, and then he lost 4 on the first combat, and then he lost 2 more on the next combat, and then Titus was by himself, but he was able to do some stuff. A pretty rough thing. I didn't get to sticky my home objective because I couldn't budget the CP for it, which bit us in the butt because the Centurions came in here and started going for my expansion, and I could not afford to deal with them because of the cards I drew. The land speeder in the center was actually more important for us to kill than the Centurions in the backfield. Thankfully, the -1 to wound actually let the Predator survive for 3 shooting phases until it was taken down, and we had 1 company hero left from the missile fire. And thankfully, that 1 hero managed to get over here, do an action. I managed to cleanse the enemy home objective and then keep it at the end of the game for the big score. So yeah, priority assets, really difficult matchup still for taking hold. I'm still wondering if I can do something else here, but that was the overall game plan. So yeah, we had the 2 big breaks in good spots, and then we had the small jump pack units as a way to like punch our opponent's counter charge into the big breaks, and then hopefully just win the attrition that way. What actually won the game was the scout squad. Preserved them until the last turn of the game. It would have been great if I stickied my home objective, but it worked out as it worked out, and we actually took it down. Our second round was played against the Genestealer cults, and this one unfortunately ended in a loss. We had to play priority assets again, which made me pretty upset because if this was recon, I think we would have had a much better chance. It was a really infantry heavy list with triple neophyte blobs, so 60 neophytes with enough points to recycle them. It was the detachment that has reroll charges on the metamorphs, and the detachment that has the 1 CP reroll all hit strat on the big blobs of stuff. So our opponent actually went first, which I did not like that very much because our opponent gets the opportunity to drop first. However, we did manage to set up pretty well. The hero is, the hero is set up over here. The Calgar brick was here, just ready to rumble. Our Land Raider was here and drove right in the center. And then we had some jump packs over here. Now, I actually made a mistake in my staging because this spot over here, a truck managed to pull up and actually get a cheeky line of sight over that diagonal and killed like all 5 of the Vanguard Veterans for free, and that was pretty annoying because there were no rerolls, and it was just the truck, not the things inside the truck. So annoying. So, and then there was a big squad with like kill saws and stuffs going up here, and my Redeemer parked here. They did go for the charge and failed it on the reroll, and I thought I could capitalize on this and just start shoving my stuff. I put the I put the Titus unit over here. I got my company heroes killed over here, but the Calgar squad did heroic in and immediately counterpunch, so the Calgar squad could charge another 20-man unit over here. And then we had a Redeemer smack dab in the center, threatening Overwatch on everything. We had one big blob of Terminators here and the big Titus blob down here. So our opponent, basically, I asked my opponent a question, and that question was, I'm gonna just stat check you now, do something about it. And unfortunately, my opponent popped the hell off. The one of the 20-man blobs actually took the Redeemer down to like 2 wounds, because all of the last cannon shots with the lethals actually like connected and did like 7 damage per pop. It was so crazy. So 2 of them went in. I made 1 save, and then I took 14 damage just on the lasers, and then it was like the second blob split fired, killed the Redeemer with the lasers, and then killed 8 of the 10 Terminators just with like random stuff. It was crazy. Like I had never lost 8 Terminators to like a bunch of AP1 shooting. Crazy stuff. It was all like seismic cannons and like shotguns and stuff. It was not that much damage actually. So yeah, my stat check pretty much failed. The Titus break over here actually made it till the end, as you can see right here. But yeah, overall this was a pretty unfortunate matchup, I think. Genestealer cults are in a very unique position where, first of all, the primary is really bad because I hate playing against priority assets with Take and Hold, because we have the same problem again. Our opponent can just sit here or here and do an action and get 8 points, and we have to, for the entire game, have 1, 2, 3, 4 objectives, so our opponent can't get the cap 3 objectives. In the end, it was kind of close. Our opponent scored 93 and we scored 76, so it was a 17-point loss, considering I lost like 800 points of stuff in 1 turn. I think that was pretty fine. We actually made it to the enemy home objective, and the Heroic King 20-man unit failed its battle shock test, but unfortunately the Terminators, the remaining, it was the Ancient, One Hammer, and Calgar. I failed like all of my hit rolls. I hit on 2s, wounded on 2s, and my opponent just didn't die to the 18 dice I was throwing at him, and one of the 10-man units survived with like 5 models, and then we couldn't cap the home objective away because it was like 5 models with OC and then 1 vehicle over here. It was a bit annoying. There was a bit of a communications problem in that spot of the game, because I didn't really understand what unit was actually what on that point. But yeah, I would have scored 10 extra points if that actually worked out and prevented my opponent from scoring 5 that turn. But yeah, that didn't in the end matter for the end result. It was a bad matchup. Genestealer Cult's pretty unique problem, because it's the only faction with big blobs of infantry that can play passive gameplay, whereas the other 20 model infantry armies have to play aggressively, like Necrons. The 20 Necron warriors have to be on the center objective. They can't just stay back. The orcs, your green tide has to push forward. That kind of stuff. And on this Genestealer Cult army, like the 20 blob can just drop outside of 24, just shoot you, and then stay there, which makes it pretty difficult to answer if you don't have blast shooting, which this list unfortunately didn't, because the solution to a big blob of infantry is just to charge it with the Titus unit, and then all of them die. It is pretty impressive how many models they can actually kill, even if you lose the humans before you go in. But yeah. If I didn't lose 8 Terminators, or if the Redeemer survived on like 5 wounds or something, I think I would have won that game on the spot. But unfortunately, that's not what happened. I still defend my thing of capitalizing on this failed charge to just try and step on my opponent's neck. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. His opinion was I should have committed the Titus unit over here and the Calgar unit over here instead of vice versa. And I don't know if that is correct. I have to think about it a bit more because the Titus unit is a bit limited in as to where it can go. But yeah, we lost 17 points. The player ended up going second place at the end of the event. But yeah, I'm still considering how bad the matchup was. I don't think this performance was too bad. Last but not least, we got matched against the Tyranids, and this is a matchup I, unfortunately for my opponent, had practice. I have played the Take and Hold Mirror against Norn emissaries and Norn assimilators, the Norn detachment, at least 8 times at this point. I have played against this list in and out because my friend has started to play this list in when the edition started. He took the detachment. He was like, I'm gonna build this 5 Norns list. And yeah, so I ran into a 4 Norn list, and yeah, that went bad for my opponent. I knew every single rule my opponent had, even though the list wasn't the same. It was 4 Norns and a bunch of support, while my friend plays 5 Norns. But in the end, it didn't really matter. So, what is a Norn? Norns have a 5-up Feel No Pain and a 15 OC characteristic on the objective chosen at the beginning of the game, and my opponent had a detachment which allows them to once per game per Norn switch the objective. So you can say here on turn 1 and then move to the center on turn 2, stuff like that, just to have a bunch of OC on the point. Unfortunately for Norns, their damage into -1 to hidden wound is really swingy, which means and there is no fallback and charge in this detachment, so I decided to just go in. So my opponent started and put 2 Norns in the center, 1 over here, and stage 1 over there. Our opponent saved 2 command points to 5-up Feel No Pain the Norn over here in case it gets charged on an objective, off of an objective, excuse me. And said something like he's gonna hold the objectives, and I was like, let's check that because I played this matchup. I know Norns cannot kill assault terminators at a fast rate. So the Land Raider boosted up the Titus brick, charged the Norn over here. Didn't do much damage because the saves were pretty good on my opponent. My assault terminators charged the 2 Norns over here and didn't do much damage either to those Norns. And then that was kind of it. I didn't do a whole lot else. There was a Neurolictor over here, and that Neurolictor survived the entire Redeemer worth of shooting. Like, I wounded it like 10 times with the flame cannons, and our opponent held 8 invulns or something. It was crazy. And then I charged it with the Vanguard Veterans, and it died like exactly to the last attack of the Van Vets. That was like the tankiest Neurolictor I've ever seen. However, our opponent, on their turn, supported the Norn by charging the Red Death, the Red Terror into the Titus unit over here, and then battle shocked my Terminators in the center with Shadows. It was the only unit that failed the battle shock test, was my Terminator squad in the center. So our opponent scored with the Norns here. The other Norn was over here. And the Maleceptor over here just projected its -1 to hit aura, which was actually a pretty big deal. So yeah, we lost a bunch of Terminators that turn. I think like 6 of them died. But our saves were also pretty good. And as I said, our opponent doesn't do much damage. The Swarm Lord was actually really annoying. It was a Hive Tyrant and a Swarm Lord just being really annoying over here. So yeah, thankfully the Red Terror did basically nothing, and we did hit the Norn hard enough so it would die on the next turn, which was good for us because we actually saw a gap. Our opponent could not screen this little spot over here, so we rapid ingress the Van Vets with the captain, and I moved onto the enemy home objective. And if you have ever played the Take and Hold mirror match, you know the home objective bonus points are incredibly important. So our opponent had nothing left to do. We we killed the Swarm Lord on our turn. We killed the Red Terror just with the Redeemer. The Redeemer set it on fire and it died. And then the Norn over here died in the remaining attack step with a bit of help from the Predator. And then we lost the remaining Terminators on the next turn, but it was kind of done because the one Norn here and the Maleceptor and the Norn over here, they just couldn't really do anything. Our home objective was too far away from them to ever threaten. The company heroes over here were not threatened at all to lose the objective. So even though our opponent pretty much held the center and the objective over here, the expansion, we managed to just squeak it out pretty convincingly because of the home objective thing. The moment you tell your opponent you're gonna sticky their home objective is the point where your opponent just mentally shuts down. It is really, really bad to happen. The Norns tried really hard to kill my Land Raider Redeemer and it just didn't work out. That thing survived until the end of the game. The Predator, not threatened at all because there was no long range shooting, just got to last cannon into the center every turn, and we actually managed to kill 3 of the 4 Norns, so the opponent was left with just the Maleceptor and 1 of the Norns, I believe. That was all that was left. And we lost the Chaplain, and the Titus unit only had the Titus model left at the end. We lost the Reavers over there. But yeah, the Scouts, once again, took this objective in the end game. The Predator advanced down because we once again had no command points to sticky the home objective. And yeah, it just worked out pretty well. Going second here and taking the enemy home objective. Yeah, the big problem with spore mines there was a bio war here with putting spore mines across the board. You can't put a spore mine down before a rapid ingress happens. So the turn 1 spore mine has to be in a really good spot, and the turn 2 spore mine cannot prevent you from rapid ingressing because shooting phase, movement phase. That's the big problem. Yeah. Overall, I think this matchup is actually pretty good for our list, just because I actually popped the +1 OC thing in order to flip the center. I charged both of the Norns and put the Redeemer in the center and just told my opponent, so this is gonna be 30, that's gonna be 38 OC to take away from your 2 Norns. If you don't kill like 3 of my Terminators in this round of combat, I'm taking this away from you. At least for like the end of turn, if you control 1, 2, and 3 objectives, you get the 2 bonus points, and I managed to get that in both turns because on the second turn I had my opponent's home, I had my expansion and my home, so that was also 3 objectives. So yeah, pretty convincing performance, I would say. In the end, what were my thoughts on the list? So the overall game plan, in my opinion, is solid. The Land Raider Redeemer was a really good unit to include in this list because it gave the Titus unit much needed mobility to actually charge into the fray. The big Terminator blob, although it never does any convincing damage ever, manages to really convince me with the durability. Unless your opponent has like damage 4 blast with ignore modifiers, I think this is like a really tough unit for your opponent to get through. The Predator, even though it's like a bit of a meme thing, it was my emotional support Predator. I took this guy just to have a thing that would discourage my opponent from deploying a Rhino on the line. And honestly, the Predator was pretty solid. It was just one Predator. If it whiffed one turn, because there was like cover and stuff, it would be like, I guess. But in the end, the Predator was like fine. It was still a good thing. In the GSC game, it was just a screen, so that wasn't very important. But yeah, that all happened. The company heroes actually really convinced me. Not only did they very, very effectively contribute to the OC battle of the list, the heavy bolter with heavy and oath actually popped off in the Space Wolf game. I actually managed to roll triple sustained hits, so I had 9 dice coming in at that land speeder in the center and killed it. Yeah, that was nice. The jump pack units, on the other hand, have been a bit mixed. Now, the number one reason to go for Vengeful Host is the stratagem that allows you to auto pass a battle shock test whenever you need to in your command phase. So even if you are battle shocked, you can just pay and say, no, I'm not battle shocked. And that stratagem alone, in my opinion, is worth it. I have been pretty disappointed with the captain squad specifically. The Liberatum enhancement is just nowhere close to how much damage the Orksbane does, and it is very expensive to have a unit that can drop down with a charge and not do anything else. If I had to fix something, I would probably cut the Chaplain squad for a basic Assault Intercessor squad, and then give the captain the Orksbane instead, and find a way to put the other 100 points, 120 points freed up to good use. Now, I know I just said the captain was disappointing because the chaplain did super well with the Orksbane, but the reason for that is honestly not the captain specifically, it is the enhancement. In my opinion, the jump pack captain is a lot better than the jump pack chaplain, because my +1 to wound is better than +1 strength in almost every situation, but having a free stratagem and 2 extra wounds is actually very relevant for most of my gameplay, because instead of using the chaplain squad to skirmish, I would just skirmish with the JPI, and then rapid ingress the captain squad with the Orksbane to do some pretty big damage. The chaplain's mortal wound ability is pretty flimsy. I don't really believe in it, and I think if you wanted to take this, this would be my number one advice. Maybe cut the 5 Vanvets with the chaplain, give the captain the Orksbane, so you keep your option of having +1 strength or rapid ingress or the +2 charge strat for free, and you don't really lose out on that much. Because if you think about this, if you charge a vehicle with toughness 10, having +1 strength is the same thing as +1 to wound on most of your weapons, you can always go to +2 strength and then have Oath of Moment, which ensures you will wound even the toughness 12 stuff on force every single time. And and in exchange, you would just get a 5-man unit of JPI that you can more easily and expendable throw away. Yeah, that was my little report for Reclamation Force and Vengeful Hosts. I hope you enjoyed this little video. If you like this, please write your comments, ask me any of my questions, and I will see you next time whenever I try something else with Reclamation Force. Courage and honor, we march for McCrag.